Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Quarter Disorder Podcast. This is episode 9 of the podcast, and this episode is being recorded on Friday night, April 5th, 2024. I'm your host, Tim Bowman, the owner and editor-in-chief of Quarter Disorder, and on this episode, it's just going to be me on a solo adventure. I'm going to be talking about a bunch of stuff I watched since the last episode and all the news from the past week. I got into a lot of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, along with all the episodes from the new X-Men 97 show. So we're going to get into all of that and more. But first, before we get into this episode, we're going to play a brief clip of how you can connect with the podcast and support the show. And I'll be right back after the message. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode. I just want to remind everyone how they can listen and support the Quarter Disorder podcast. The show is available on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. We have a channel dedicated to the show on YouTube that can be found under Quarter Disorder Podcast, so make sure to subscribe to us on there. We put full episodes on there with timestamps, so it's a great way to listen to the show. We're also available wherever else you get your podcasts. We have an RSS feed that you can plug in to download shows that way too. This episode and every episode of the podcast have show notes and an outline to follow that will have links and other notes to all the topics we talk about on this episode. You can find those show notes by going to the website at quarterdisorderpodcast.com or quarterdisorder.com. At the top of the homepage is a podcast section dedicated to the show. If you click into there, you'll find all our links and show notes dedicated to each episode. The show notes on the website will also have the full episode of this podcast included in there if you want to listen to the podcast that way too. We're also on social media, so be sure to give us a follow on the platforms you're on. We're on Threads, Facebook, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Instagram, basically everywhere. So follow us on social media to get updates on the show and when we post a new episode. Our social links for the podcast can be found by going to the website at quarterdisorderpodcast.com and going into the podcast section at the top of the homepage. Most of our social handles are under Quarter Disorder Podcast, but some like Twitter/X are different because of character limitations. So just check out the website for all our social links. You can also follow me, Tim Bowman, on social media under Tim Bowman Media and on my website at timbowmanmedia.com, where I post my writing, concert reviews, photography, videos, and gaming news. I have all my personal social media links on there as well. If you have any sort of comments to make about things we talked about on this episode or feedback to give us, good or bad, you can drop a comment under this episode's show notes on quarterdisorderpodcast.com or by sending us an email to feedback@quarterdisorderpodcast.com. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel for each episode. We would really appreciate any comments or feedback you might have, as it helps us get better at doing the show and connecting with all of you out there. I also want to mention that we have a new feedback survey for anyone who's listening to the podcast. It's a quick survey that you can fill out, and the link to the survey will be in this episode show notes as well as on quarterdisorderpodcast.com. If you go to the homepage and click under the podcast section, you'll find the survey there. We really appreciate you completing this survey as it helps us make the show better and make improvements in a lot of different ways. And finally, if you're enjoying the podcast, help us out and give us a review on Spotify and Apple. Give us a star rating and leave us a written review, and give us a thumbs up on YouTube. This all helps get the show out there and helps us grow, so we really appreciate it. And thanks again for listening. All right, we're back with the show, and let's get into what I've been watching for the past couple of weeks since the last episode we did. I'm still going on with Godfather of Harlem. I've finished season 2, and now I'm about halfway through season 3. Watching this on Hulu Plus still, and believe season 3 is the last season that's available. I think they're probably in the middle of doing the filming for the next season, so I'm almost done with the series of the episodes that are available. And season 2 was really great. They mixed a lot of historical civil rights stuff from the United States in the 1963, 1964 time period in the country, and kind of mixed that with the storyline. So that was really cool. And season 3 starts off immediately where season 2 left off, so it's kind of in the same time period. And the season 3 has kind of been weird because immediately when I started watching, the actor that played Malcolm X in the first 2 seasons, who is named Nigel Thatch, he's gone. So what actually what ended up happening is they have an entirely new guy playing Malcolm X in season 3. And this actor's name is Jason Allen Carville. And I guess I had to look this up, like what happened, because it's kind of jarring. You're seeing this new guy play a character that had such good chemistry on screen with the other characters. And I guess Nigel Thatch had some scheduling conflicts and he couldn't do the 3rd season. And I think this is all filming during the pandemic and all that stuff, because season 3 came out in I believe January 2023, so it's still fairly recent. So they have a new actor playing Malcolm X, and it just kind of jarring at first because like it's like a real, it's supposed to be like based on historical events, but I know it's a TV show and people are acting, but like no one acknowledges that, like, oh yeah, you look like a completely different dude. So it was kind of like jarring, and they don't have like the same chemistry in the first couple episodes, but he's a really tremendous actor and he actually looks a lot more like Malcolm X too. But that was kind of the one major change to the season, and there's not a lot of as much historical stuff as season 1 and 2. They have some stuff going on with Malcolm X visiting Africa to meet with the leaders of the different nations there, and a potential speech that he was going to give there in the mid 60s. But they kind of scaled back some of the civil rights stuff and other historical content that's based in America from the 60s, and it's basically more about the story of Bumpy Johnson now butting heads with a new figure in the Italian mafia named Joe Colombo, who is played by Michael Raymond James, who I really wasn't familiar with, so this is the first role that I've seen him in. And he's basically trying to get as much power in the Italian mob, and is acting as the go-to for Vincent Gigante, who is, without getting into too much spoilers, was arrested. So he's in prison, but he's still kind of giving orders through Joe Colombo, who is now a one of the heads of the Italian mafia families. So basically, season 3 is a lot of introducing Colombo and establishing him as a character, and him and Bumpy Johnson kind of still going at it to establish who's going to run Harlem, basically. So season 3 is pretty good. The acting is really great. It's just not as good as the first 2 seasons. But the first 2 seasons were like all-time great, and this is like really great too. It's just something I noticed that's different. The quality is a little bit dropped a bit for some of the reasons that I mentioned. Also, Vincent D'Onofrio is not in this season so far because his character is in jail, so he hasn't really appeared. So you're not really getting those great scenes between him on screen, or him, kind of going at it with Bumpy Johnson, played by Forrest Whitaker. So that's kind of a noticeable thing missing. But the character Joe Colombo, he fills in pretty great. And Michael Raymond James, who plays him, like I said, is a really great actor and has these like really great facial expressions and just the way he communicates with people, trying to be personal, but he's just wants to kill them all, but he's trying to be like this fake nice guy. So it comes across really well the way he acts it. But so far I'm halfway through season 3. Probably going to finish it in the next week or 2, and then after that, I'm pretty much done with the season until they put out season 4. That's going to happen. So still recommend the show. It's really great. It just there's some changes to season 3 that I noticed. So it's dropped off a bit, but still really great series, and it's probably one of my favorite all-time shows, just for the quality of the acting and the characters and the storylines they presented. But other than that, I'm still watching Curb Your Enthusiasm season 12, so I've pretty much caught up. I watched episodes 7 through 9, which they're dropping, weekly episodes every Sunday night on HBO and Max streaming. So I believe this upcoming Sunday, as I'm recording it on Friday night, Sunday, April 7th, is the series finale. I believe so. So they're already like done with the season, which is kind of crazy. A lot of funny stuff in the past couple episodes. Really hilarious, laugh out loud stuff. I'm gonna miss LD, Larry David, doing his thing. But I think the season's been really great, really funny. And I'm kind of interested to see what they do in the series finale, because that's like, that's the end of everything. So, but there's been a lot of really funny stuff. I highly recommend the show. Check it out. A lot of great scenes, like ridiculous stuff, but it's pretty much kept up its quality. And like I said, the season season and series is ending, I believe, on this Sunday. So after that, it's done. So all the episodes are available on HBO Max to stream. And the big show that I've really been watching in the past couple of weeks is X-Men 97, the new animated show that debuted on Disney Plus. So they are also doing weekly episode drops. So they didn't put everything up at the same time. So you have to kind of stay subscribed and watch it week to week. But so far they've put up 4 episodes. They drop them every Wednesday night. And before recording the show, I actually just finished episode 4, where Jubilee of the X-Men gets stuck in a 16-bit video game and has to escape. And also the other part of the episode deals with Storm as a focus. So basically some of the themes of the show so far is Charles Xavier, Professor X, is dead. And the X-Men initially were trying to figure out where to go and who's going to lead the team and all that stuff. So Cyclops took over the team as like the boots on the ground leader. And then actually Magneto, who was, Professor X's and the team's, arch nemesis, he actually turns over a new leaf and becomes a good guy. And he is running the X-Men in the mansion in the academy, basically, at the wishes of Charles Xavier. So that's kind of an interesting twist. And another overarching storyline so far through these episodes is that Storm has lost her powers and she's trying to recover them. So basically she is no longer a mutant with powers and instead more like a human being that's just living a normal life, but she wants her powers back. So that's pretty interesting. But the show has been really awesome. It really captures that magic of the original show. They do this really cool thing where the animation looks like it's from the 90s series, but it's got like some sort of film or drawing style over it, but it's modernized, so it looks really, really good. There's a lot of nostalgia to the show, but not like overbearing, and it's just like the writing and the characters, everything is like so top notch that it's like a perfect blend of everything. And I do remember watching the original show in the 90s as a kid because it would come up on like, Fox Kids or something, like, I think on the weekends or Saturday, and like the show was awesome. And they do have a lot of the returning voice actors for this series that's on Disney Plus. So it's just like an extension of that, like, almost 30 years later. Basically 30 years later, because I think the show ended in 97, but it was going on through, the early 90s to that period. So X-Men 97, probably some of the best stuff Marvel's done in a long time. Definitely one of the best animated shows in a while, and a really great way to bring the X-Men back into the MCU with whatever they do with them. But I'm really loving the show. I think it's tremendous. Like I said, the writing is top notch, the animation's great, the music hits. Still relevant politically and socially, which I think a lot of people probably like just flies over their heads. But it's the X-Men, so like they're still doing like social commentary and stuff like that on current events in a very clever way. So it's a great series. Highly recommended. I don't know how many episodes are doing, but it's a weekly drop. So the episode 4 was actually that just came out this week as a part 1. So a part 2 of that episode story is going to come out next week. So that's something to look forward to. And it was really interesting seeing in episode 4, Jubilee gets sucked into this 16-bit game, and they have like a fake Nintendo system and a cartridge that looks like that X-Men game that was on the Sega Genesis in the 90s. That was really great. It was like a black cartridge game. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I remember playing that a lot. So those X-Men games from the 90s were really awesome on the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Like fantastic games. So like just keep checking this show out. Watch it if you haven't. If you don't have any exposure to the original X-Men series, like you don't really need to know the story from that, because I didn't remember anything either, and they kind of do a great job of like catching you up, and it's got its own thing going on. So highly recommended. Check that show out, X-Men 97 on Disney Plus, and they are up to episode 4 at the moment. So episode 5 will come out next week. And I'm going to throw in something new on the show that we haven't really talked about before, is a movie I saw in the theater. So I went to the theater last Friday night, actually, to see the new movie Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, which actually came out that Friday, so it released on March 29th. And I actually saw the movie in 3D. I didn't really intend to, but I went to the theater with a friend of mine, and they basically didn't have any seats available for like the regular showings, and just like driving to like another theater was just going to take too long, so we just kind of stuck around and bought 3D tickets. So I haven't seen a 3D movie, and I can't even remember. I really think like Avatar, like the first Avatar, might be like the last 3D movie I've ever seen in a theater. It's been that long. I didn't really know they were still doing 3D stuff. I know they had some like animation movies with the Pixar style movies, but I didn't know like, the action movies and stuff were still doing 3D. But as far as like the 3D stuff, it was a couple dollars more expensive as far as the tickets. I think it was pretty cool. Like they did have like cool 3D effects and stuff like that. I don't know if I would go out of my way to see it in 3D, but it definitely added like a pretty solid element to the film. I thought the movie was really cool. It's basically just a big dumb action movie with kind of just like a just big dumb storyline where Kong this is like a sequel to the last movie that came out in I think 2020, so during the pandemic. And in this movie, Kong is in below Earth in his own space where these Titans beings live. And there's a new, basically, antagonist that comes through. And Godzilla and Kong have to team up to prevent basically the end of the world. So most of the focus in the movie is actually based on these Titans, Godzilla, Kong, a few other ones. Mothra's in the movie, which was cool. And there's less focus on like the human characters and their kind of hangups and stuff. So like, I think that's why the movie's probably a lot better, because it's focused more on the action and stuff like that. So there was a lot of great action scenes, good fighting scenes. Like I said, some of the effects in 3D were pretty cool. Yeah, just probably what you expect from this type of movie. Just like a big, fun action movie. You don't have to think too much. The storyline is ridiculous. The character dialogue's kind of just there. Like there's nothing really like there's no like standout performances from the people, like the real actors in the movie, but the focus is really more on the special effects and the Titans fighting each other and just beating the crap out of each other and Godzilla going crazy. So like that's what you want in this type of movie, and it really delivers on that. I will say though, like there's some pretty weird like music tie-ins and scenes that really don't fit the songs they picked. Kind of stood out. It's not really like a negative. I just thought it was like funny. Like without going into too many spoilers, they use Kiss, a Kiss song, like the Kiss rock band, in a scene that was like totally just had nothing to do with the song. It like didn't fit at all. So I thought that was kind of hilarious. But other than that, like some weird music choices doesn't really affect the movie too much. But the movie's pretty awesome. I do recommend checking it out. Like I don't know if you have to go out and rush to the theater to see it, but if you catch it on streaming, it's definitely worth watching. It's a really cool movie. I did like it a lot. I was kind of glad seeing it. I think just seeing that kind of movie in the theater with like the big screen and the sound effects and stuff was really fun. And I did see the movie at AMC, and they were giving out, not giving out, you had to buy it, but at the concession stand, you could buy like a special edition like cup that came with like a toy figurine of like Kong or Godzilla or like one of the bad guys in the movie who's like another Titan. And these like special edition like popcorn holders. The popcorn things were kind of lame, but I got a Kong cup because why not? It looked kind of cool. But yeah, it's probably gonna be in the theaters next couple of weeks. If that movie sounds interesting to you, check it out. It's definitely good. The movie doesn't suck. And I did like it better than the last Kong movie that they did regarding Kong and Godzilla. So now they're best friends, they're homies, they're hanging out, beating up bad guys. So definitely recommend the movie. It's really cool. So but yeah, I'm gonna get into some of the stuff I've been playing for the past couple of weeks, and especially the past week. The main game I've been playing that I mentioned at the top of the show is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Still playing that on PlayStation 5. And I think the last time we talked about it on this show, I had just been in the first open world area that you're kind of exposed to after, a couple hours of main storyline stuff. And then the game kind of puts you out in this open world called the Grasslands. That's pretty expansive, and you're kind of just left to your own devices to either continue the storyline or kind of explore a lot of it and fight monsters, do side quests, find treasures, things like that. So I immediately went into the side quest. There is one mission you actually have to do to unlock chocobos, so you can actually ride them around the world. And it kind of plays into the main storyline mission because you need to ride a chocobo across this swampy area. So you have to do this one mission to basically get this chocobo farm to let you ride the chocobos, and that becomes like a little area once you do to you can save your game, you can rest up, you can buy items there, you can update your chocobo and stuff like that. But once you get the chocobo, you can like basically run around everywhere in this grasslands area and do side quests. And there's a guy or a character that was in the first remake of Final Fantasy VII who basically makes, I think he's like an android or something. He's not like really a person, but he makes materia for you when you have to like collect information about the world. So like fighting certain enemies, scanning certain objects. In this game, you can like power up these like Shinra towers that are, I don't know if they're Shinra towers or maybe the Republic of Juna or whatever. But they're basically these dormant like cellular like towers, and once you power those up, they kind of open up parts of the map for you so you can see other like special locations. So all this stuff collects data for this android character, and so that's a ton of side quests there. And then there's other side quests where people give you missions to help them out with certain stuff. So in the Grasslands, there was a few of those, and then you can actually go back to the town that you escaped from. And Shinra's gone. You can go back in there and do a couple side missions that people give you there. So I spent a significant amount of time in this Grasslands area. I think I was there, I want to say like 8 or 9 hours of just doing like these like side quests and stuff. And then I did mostly everything. There was a couple areas I feel like I couldn't get to because they were blocked off for like storyline reasons. So I think once I get further into the game, I'm going to go back to get some of the stuff I missed. But there was a lot to do. I was surprised because usually I was thinking like, well, maybe you open up this area, there's a couple things to do and maybe like a couple hours or something. But I was like 8 or 9 hours like into side quests doing everything. And when I felt like I did pretty much everything that I could, then I went and continued the main storyline and went through this mine area with the team, fought a couple boss fights between then and there. And then once you get through this mine area, you arrive in a second area called Junto, I believe it's called. And once you get there, it basically opens up this huge map again, and you're just doing the same thing over again like you were in the Grasslands, where there's so many different side quests, things to discover. You have to unlock the chocobos all over again. So I'm guessing in this game, there's the different regions that you go to in the map have different chocobo styles. So in the Grasslands, it was a typical yellow chocobo, like the classic look that you see. And in the second area, Junto, you are playing with chocobos that can climb walls and stuff like that. So they're like a dark gray chocobo. So it's a pretty cool aspect. Like the chocobos have different abilities and powers depending on where you're at. But again, you have to unlock that. So for a bit, I was just trying to even get to that mission. And once you do, it opens up like so much in that area. But the game looks phenomenal, especially the second area. There's like shipwrecks and kind of destroyed areas and stuff that look really cool. Game's writing is phenomenal. I really like the characters. The dialogue's really funny. My main party that I've been using is Cloud, Barrett, and Aerith. And then I started using Tifa a bit too. There's parts in the story where they kind of force you to use certain characters, so it's kind of a good idea to keep everybody equipped with the latest stuff and material that you want to use, because there will be times, I'm guessing, in the story where you can only use certain characters in your party, which has happened a few times already. So Started using Tifa because of that, and she's great, close range combat. But my main three is Cloud for, obviously he's the main character, one of the most powerful, Barret for long range, and then I use Aerith for magic. And that's kind of my main three right now. And that'll probably change maybe in the game as you unlock more characters. I do like Tifa. Red 13's okay, but I was just unlocking a ton of powers and abilities with skill points. So there's you can do like team moves, which are called I think synergy moves between different characters, and these can be damaging attacks to enemies, or it can be like defensive roles where it gives you protection from attacks, or it increases your MP. There's a whole bunch of different stuff, way to play the game. So I'm currently level 24 or 25. I actually just finished a boss fight earlier tonight. And I believe I'm about to get another character for my party at some point. But I still feel like I'm still early in the game. I'm about like 15 hours at this point, and I'm only on chapter 4. So I spent a lot of time on the side quests, which I probably would be a lot further in the actual main storyline if I didn't do that. But then there's just so much cool stuff to do. I don't feel like it's like forced or anything, or like, oh, this is boring. The side quests are pretty interesting. I like exploring and unlocking all this stuff. So before the game came out, there was a lot of people talking. I think even people on the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth development team that said the game's going to be up to like 100 hours and it's all this stuff. And I kind of just like brushed that off. I'm like, yeah, I guess if you do everything and explore every nook and cranny. But now that I'm actually playing the game, it's like, yeah, that's what I'm doing, because like the game is so awesome and it's done so well that you just want to do all that stuff. So especially in like an RPG like this, I feel like they really nailed just the world building aspect. So many cool mini games. There's like this card game mini game that we talked about, where the matches go by really quick, and you just have a deck of cards on this game board, and you got to kind of strategize how to win. There's other mini games that are tied to some of the side missions. So it's really like a really huge, expansive game, and it's probably going to end up on either going to be my game of the year, or at least in the top 3 to 5, because I'm just really loving the game so far. I don't know when I'm going to beat it, because like I said, it's just taking me so long to get through this, and I'm spending a lot of time on the side quest because I want to get the full experience of the game. And I am like leveling up. I'm learning new abilities. I'm unlocking new summon abilities, summon creatures in the game through some of the side quests. So there's so much stuff to do that adds to the overall quality of the game. They just done a really great job with the world they've created, this open world environment. But then the storyline missions are more kind of linear and focused. And I'm just really enjoying it. The story's great. Right now, I'm basically trying to hunt down Sephiroth and escape Shinra. So I'm still early in the game at that point. But this is probably going to be 60, 70, 80 hour game. So but I hope to beat it hopefully in the next couple of months. It's kind of my goal. I don't want to take for like all year to do it. I know I beat like Final Fantasy 16 last year. It took me maybe like 2 or 3 months, I think. And I basically did everything in that game, or like 95%. I think some of like the optional boss fights I didn't do, or there was some stuff I didn't do, but mostly everything I did. So I'm probably going to do the same thing for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But the game is awesome. Like, it really nailed just the feel of the original game, but making it new and this new experience. And I highly recommend it to everybody. It's probably one of the best games this generation so far, and definitely one of the best JRPGs that I've played in a long time. Really great. It's not the same as like Final Fantasy 16, because FF16 is a different type of game and different writing, and it's more serious and different type of characters and stuff. But this really captures that magic that Final Fantasy VII had, but in a new way, because everything is so expanded, and there's all these new areas and stuff. It's not like the first game, but it is in a lot of ways. So they really nailed this game and did a great job with it. So like I said, I'm 15 hours in. I don't feel like I really even scratched the surface, but I've done a ton of stuff in the game, and learning more about the combat and figuring out what party I like and weapons and stuff like that. So having a really great time with it. I'm gonna play some more this weekend, and my goal is hopefully by June or something like that I can actually finish the game. But I think I'm gonna probably reach that 100-hour mark because I'm literally doing everything that comes across on the world map. But I'm loving it. So if you haven't checked this out yet, go get a copy immediately. You don't even need to really play the first one. I mean, it helps, but this game is kind of fills you in about stuff. So tremendous game, loving it, and can't wait to play more. So that's what I've been playing. That was pretty much the only game I was playing because I was kind of devoting most of my time to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And now we're going to get into some TV and movie news from the past week, and just a couple items here, and following up with Godzilla X Kong New Empire, which I just talked about earlier in the show, about seeing that in theaters. It had actually a pretty big opening weekend. So North America on opening weekend, it made $80 million. So its opening was above the expected $55 million. And that's according to Variety. And so far it's made over $200 million globally. So I think it's doing really, really well. And probably one of the better performing movies in that franchise of this Kong Godzilla combo franchise, or whatever they're calling it, from the last couple of movies. So definitely doing a lot better than was anticipated. Had a really nice opening weekend. So yeah, I mean, doing really well. Probably will continue to grow because maybe due to word of mouth, stuff like that. But definitely, like I said, definitely worth seeing. I don't think it's a rush to go to the theater to see it, but if you can catch it on streaming, it's a fun experience. It's just a fun movie. So definitely seeing some success with that. Like I said, over $200 million made globally, so that's pretty impressive for something like that. I didn't think it was going to do that much. I thought it would do all right, but I think maybe the good reviews and word of mouth has kind of bumped the movie up a bit. So, but going into some TV stuff, we kind of talked about this show a little bit on this podcast before, and Daredevil Born Again, which is going to be on Disney Plus in 2025. A couple of news stuff came out this past week. So one, they are now finished with filming. So the show is done on that aspect. And there was a lot of scenes or pictures that I wouldn't say leaked, but they came out through, different websites and social media, and random people uploading pictures of John Bernthal returning as the Punisher. So that's really cool. And there were scenes with him and Charlie Cox, as Daredevil, doing some scenes. They got all the people around them filming and stuff like that. So, so he's in the show for sure. And like I said, it's reported they're done filming, and it's coming out in 2025. I know they had a lot of issues with the writing on the show and going from Netflix to Disney Plus and the episode formats and stuff, but I think it's going to turn out well. I don't know the storyline per se of what they're going to do. I think they kind of hinted when you watch the Echo show that I've talked about on this podcast, which is on Hulu and Disney Plus, which is a I think 5-episode miniseries that's kind of loosely tied to Daredevil because Echo is the adopted daughter of the Kingpin, and the Kingpin is the main bad guy in Daredevil Born Again. And watching that show, they kind of make some hints to the story that's going to take place in Daredevil Born Again, which is from the comics too. I don't think this is crazy spoilers, but basically Kingpin Fisk is going to be potentially the mayor of New York City. So I don't know if that's just going to be the storyline for Daredevil Born Again on the Disney Plus show, but that would be pretty cool. And Punisher is back as well. So I don't think Punisher has been in any of these Disney shows or Marvel stuff since they ended his Netflix series. So that's really cool to see. So I'll have some links in the show notes you can check out to see the behind the scenes photos of that and get a little insight into the show. And some other Marvel news. Is for a Marvel movie in the MCU. So the Fantastic Four movie that they revealed is coming out in July 2025. They have the main cast already, which we talked about on the show. You know, Pedro Pascal, a few other people. They have the main cast of the Fantastic Four, but a character, Silver Surfer, is going to be in the movie, but it's a little bit different. So Julia Garner from the show Ozark, who's a Primetime Emmy Award and Golden Globe winner, she has been cast as Shala Bal, who is a version of Silver Surfer from the Marvel Comics. I really wasn't familiar with that particular character. I think it's like the wife of the actual Silver Surfer, but in this Fantastic Four movie, Silver Surfer is going to be that version of the character. So that's kind of interesting. They're changing that up, or it might be like an alternative universe, or maybe there's. I'm going to link a article that kind of explains more of who this Silver Surfer character is from IGN.com. And I think in that article, they talk about the possibility of, well, maybe there's going to be two Silver Surfers in the MCU or something like that. But interesting choice. This Fantastic Four movie might even be an alternative universe type of situation. So that would explain maybe why the Silver Surfer is a different role. But I think that's cool. Like, Silver Surfer is one of the coolest Marvel characters, and getting that character back in the movies is going to be great, and I think should gel really well. I really wasn't familiar with Julia Garner. I haven't watched Ozark, but they did get another heavy hitter, another great actress to be in the movie, so they do have a great cast. So that's a positive for the movie. So that's not coming out for a while, though. It's coming out July 2025, but we do have confirmation that Silver Surfer is going to be in the movie. But to what capacity or what the storyline is, they haven't really revealed those details yet. So that is something to look forward to for next year then. So, but moving on to some gaming news, the gaming side of stuff. I'm going to start off with an interesting story that Kotaku actually reported on from I guess it's like a data group called Newzoo, who basically did this report that showed that 60% of gaming in 2023 was spent on 6-year-old or older video games. So that includes stuff like, Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto 5, Counter-Strike, Roblox, Minecraft, Rocket League, Apex Legends, Fall Guys, Valorant, and Call of Duty. And I thought that was really interesting. So most people are just sticking with the same games that they always play for years. So like Fortnite, Call of Duty, Minecraft, they're just playing the same game over and over again every year and sticking with it. So in this Newzoo data report, they said that this is a quote from Kotaku. Across Xbox and PlayStation consoles, only one dedicated single-player game cracked the top 10, and that was Starfield. So that's really interesting. And here's a further quote from the Kotaku article: to further prove that gamers are primarily focused on older games, Newzoo's data shows that just 66 titles accounted for 80% of all playtime in 2023, and 60% of that playtime was spent in games that are 6 years old or older. In fact, in 2023, 5 old games, Fortnite, Roblox, League of Legends, Minecraft, and Grand Theft Auto 5, accounted for 27% of all playtime in the year. I could believe that. I can see, because Grand Theft Auto 5 is still being played. It's still one of the highest streamed games on Twitch. Fortnite is unstoppable. And Roblox is like a big hit with kids. So when you have these games that continually adds content, people are going to stick with them. And also, Fortnite's a free game I believe Roblox. I don't know if Roblox is free or you have to pay for that, but these are games with lower entry points where you're not spending $70 on them, which helps a lot. And in this article, too, from Kotaku, here's another quote, of the 23% of playtime spent in 2023 on new games, defined as 2 years or younger, more than half was spent in big annual sequels like the latest Madden or NBA game. Only 8% of video game playtime was spent on new non-annual titles like Diablo 4 or Baldur's Gate 3. That actually really surprised me, like how low the overall playtime was compared for the year, because like Baldur's Gate 3 was, a game of the year from last year, voted on multiple media organizations, and it won, awards and all this stuff, and people said it's one of the best RPGs of all time, but according to this study, only 8% of gameplay time was spent on new titles, and that's not just Baldur's Gate 3, that's just like every new title that's not a sequel or something that came out like 5 or 7 years ago or whatever. So that's really tough, because these games are so expensive, but people aren't really playing them. It's based on this data. So all these new releases, like if you're a new IP, you're really struggling to even get any sort of time in with players, because people are just sticking with the stuff that they know rather than maybe taking a chance on a new game. And even like Diablo 4, which this article mentions, Diablo 4 or Baldur's Gate 3, those are like established names. Like those are big time games. Diablo and Baldur's Gate, those are established franchises. So I can't imagine what it'd be for like a new, what came out last year that was like new. I'm trying to think. Yeah, like like a Hi-Fi Rush or something, or how much time do people play it, like a brand new game? It's just like, they're just playing Fortnite, they're just playing Minecraft, they're just playing still Rocket League. I mean, that game is like old as dirt. I mean, that game is like really old. People are still on it. So it's kind of interesting, like the cost of games are going up, and which is a big issue across PlayStation, Xbox, and all these studios, where they have to sell like millions of copies just to break even. But then, like, are people necessarily even playing these games? They're selling them, but they might just play them and then go back to Fortnite or Grand Theft Auto 5 or Minecraft or any other these long-term games that are in the top 10 that seem to be there every month and every year as far as gameplay time. And that's probably another reason why so many studios and publishers chase after that live service genre, because they want to be in that where they can have a game that goes on for 4, 5, 6, 7 years and keep making a ton of money on it. But even making a new game now to break into that set of lists right there is extremely hard, because people are just established in those games. Those games are almost like their own platform. Like, you're looking at a console like PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, or Xbox Series, and those are platforms of themselves. But then within those consoles, they have platforms like Call of Duty, Minecraft. It's its own platform. Grand Theft Auto 5 is its own platform. Fortnite, especially, it's its own platform, because they're doing like a Rock Band game in there. They have a Lego game in there. They're just like all this different stuff. So it's like these games are basically platforms unto themselves that are just expanding and growing, that people are sticking with through years now. So definitely interesting. I thought, it's just a weird thing, because I didn't expect. I kind of already knew that people were playing these games so much, but to that level, I didn't think it was going to be that high. Where just a small amount of games are accounting for most of the gameplay time that people are playing in a single calendar year. So it makes it really challenging for a new game to break through and have a lasting impact as well. So, yeah, real I don't know if it's scary or bad or what, but it's just very interesting data there that unless you're one of these games or a huge blockbuster game like Spider-Man 2, attracting these players is really tough. It's hard. It sounds like it's harder than it's ever been because in the past you didn't have these massive games that people just stuck with for years and years and years. Eventually they would move on to something else, but that's not happening these days. So something to keep an eye on going into this year and the next couple of years as the game industry keeps changing. But really surprising information there, and that, like I said, that comes from a Newzoo data report by way of Kotaku, who reported on that. And the next news item here is Ubisoft Toronto teased this week some news about the Splinter Cell remake that's been in development. So this week, Ubisoft Toronto updated their social media banners on places like Facebook and Twitter with the Sam Fisher green lights of his, I don't know if it's a suit or his mask because you don't really see his face, but when you see that image, it's like the iconic Splinter Cell graphic logo type thing. So at the same time this week, Ubisoft announced its Ubisoft Forward event that will take place in Los Angeles on June 10th. So that's going to be kind of their big summer deal where they do their own press conference and stuff like that, which I'm assuming is where this Splinter Cell remake is going to probably get some gameplay footage or hopefully a release date too. The remake was originally announced in December 2021, and so it's been in development for over 2 years now. And the last Splinter Cell game was Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Blacklist in August 2023 for the PS3, Xbox 360, Wii U, the Wii U. That's how long it's been since the last Splinter Cell game, and also on PC. So that's over a decade now. We're going on 11 years since the last Splinter Cell game. I'm not sure why they dropped that. Because the game before Blacklist, I think it was Conviction, where Sam was playing a double agent, I think, or there might have been a game called Double Agent too. But they were always great games. I don't know. I'm not really sure why they stopped making that series. They just kind of just ended it. And obviously this is a remake, so they're just rebooting the whole thing. But that's over a decade of not having Sam Fisher and that stealth franchise there. So it's been missing. It was one of my favorite franchises. I remember playing the original game on the PS2, which was ported, I believe, from the Xbox version. Played that during the PS2 days. Played the ones that came out after that. Played the ones on Xbox 360. So I believe there was two. There was two on Xbox 360 that were really, really good. I think one was, like I said, Double Agent or something like that. Another one beyond that too. And I never played Blacklist, so I don't know how that was. But actually, Ubisoft Toronto, Splinter Cell Blacklist was their first game they developed. And they've also made Watch Dogs Legions and the recent Far Cry 6. So, yeah, I anticipate them having some news. It's about time to show something off, bring that series back. Hopefully it comes out this year. That'd be really cool because I'm looking forward to that because Splinter Cell was always one of my favorite franchises and there's such great games and there's really not a game like that now with that stealth espionage stuff going on. So hopefully we get something at that Ubisoft Forward event. Makes sense. They're kind of updating their social media. They're teasing it. So it's only a couple of months away. And the first game actually released for the original Xbox in November 2022. I'm sorry, November 2002. So that's, we're going on 22 years since the first game. So they're remaking that. And I'm going to link an article. It's basically like a press release type thing that Ubisoft put out in December 2021, where they talked to some of the Ubisoft Toronto team about their vision for the game. Kind of gives you insight into what they're doing. And it's going to be a remake. It's not a remaster. It's a straight remake of the series. So that'll be in the show notes, but looking forward to that. again, Ubisoft Toronto teasing that stuff this week, so you know something's going to happen soon. And that Ubisoft Forward event's coming up around the corner, so that's a perfect time to do it. And if they do it right, that's probably going to be the biggest game they have, potentially at that show. So some good stuff there. And moving on to a game that's coming out next month on May 21st. We have some Hellblade 2 news. Some previews were coming out this week, and some new information about the performance of the game came out. So Hellblade 2 will be locked at 30 frames per second on Xbox Series X and S. It'll be 30 frames per second with dynamic resolution. And according to the development team, and so the game feels, quote, more cinematic, I guess. And there will be no additional graphical or performance options. And it is using Unreal Engine 5 for development, with some of the same facial scanning technology that the recent Marvel 1943 game that was just revealed a couple of weeks ago was using. So that's why the characters look so realistic, because of the power of the Unreal Engine 5 with that technology. So I guess the 30 frames per second thing is a weird deal. I get what they're saying. They want it to be more action, cinematic focused, but I guess the issue is that we're still into this console cycle, and the Xbox Series X still cannot push some of these games to that point. So the PC version won't have these issues. It's only the Xbox Series X and S version that's locked to this performance. And they had the same issue with Redfall, which at the time a lot of people were kind of bashing Redfall and Microsoft over, because that game was also 30 frames per second at launch. So even though they have this more powerful console, they're not really, for whatever reason, able to do that, bump it up to 60 frames per second. But I don't know if it's going to hurt this game as much. Like I said, it is a more cinematic feel to the game. That's how the first game was. So there's a lot of, it kind of feels like you're playing through a cutscene. The combat wasn't like a God of War combat. It was more visceral, where you're doing like one-on-one stuff. And just the way they were doing the storyline, it kind of made more sense for that. But I just thought it was interesting, like another Xbox game that's at 30 frames per second. And, I don't know when we're going to start getting better performance out of the games, maybe next generation. But, this was the console generation that was supposed to do it. And it's not able to do it for, one of Xbox's probably the biggest games of the year, at least up to this point when it comes out in May. It's a game they've been promoting and showcasing at different events for a couple of years now, and I think people are really looking forward to it. But it does sound from some of these previews that came out that the game is maybe more of a refinement over the first one rather than this whole new experience, which I was kind of figuring based on what Hellblade 1 was. So I think people that aren't familiar with Hellblade 1 might be disappointed at what Hellblade 2 is, because they might be expecting a totally different game. But I think it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. But I was kind of disappointed with this news, because I was expecting, especially for an Xbox exclusive, not to have those limitations, because like the PC version won't have that, but the Xbox is still do that. And they had that issue with the Redfall too, like I said, last year. But there wasn't really too much blowback to the Hellblade news as there was to Redfall. I think Redfall people were more pissed off about, and Hellblade 2 is like, oh yeah, okay. So, but just some interesting news there. Again, new previews dropped on different websites and stuff like that. You can look that up for the game, and it's coming out next month on May 21st, and will be available day one on Game Pass. So I will be checking that out. And I did like the first game, but I'm kind of more reserved on the sequel, kind of to see what they're able to do. Yeah, looking forward to that one. So, and another game announcement news here. Ninth Dive Studios, the studio that's responsible for a lot of retro game comebacks and re-releases and remakes and remasters, announced a new game. This one is called PO'd, like pissed off, PO'd Definite Edition. So I had never heard of this game before, so this is the first time I was hearing about it ever. So this is sort of like a Doom clone. It is a first-person shooter that originally came out in 1995 for the 3DO. When's the last time you heard about the 3DO, right? Like, that's ancient. And there was a PS1 port in 1996. So this remake or Definite Edition from Night Dive Studios is coming out on consoles and PC through Steam. No release date has been announced, but this game was originally developed by Any Channel, which was the studio's first game. And I guess in the storyline, this is quoting the kind of press stuff they put out for it, Night Dive Studios. You play as a chef who crashes on an alien planet infested with extraterrestrial foes, using a menu of household weapons to deliver a dish best served cold, in parentheses. By dish, I mean revenge, just in case you were confused. So then it says, like, freaking aliens, they hijacked your ship and kidnap your shipmates. It's enough to get a guy, ... PO'd. I guess that would piss you off too, right? Like, you're a chef or something and some aliens come in and kidnap you. But it does look like you play as a chef, because like in some of the cutscenes are like you got like even in the main art, like the guy's holding like a frying pan. So it's kind of weird. The game's going to have updated visuals, anti-aliasing, increased frame rates, and redefined controls, and up to 4K 144 frames per second performance. And let's see some other quality of life stuff here they announced. It says, quote, a play full of quality of life features to enhance the gameplay and fix bugs present in the original game, which can be toggled off. Wet your whistle. That's an interesting way to say it. Wet your whistle with widescreen support for the HUD and other on-screen graphics. A new delicious difficulty mode has been added for hardcore players, and 15 appetizing achievements. So this is more of a remaster, I would say, kind of some of the other games like they've done, that Night Dive has done in the past. So they're pretty legit when it comes to this stuff. Really interesting game to do, because I don't think anyone was particularly asking for, man, remember that game PO'd on the 3DO? Like, I want to play that again. It's not a knock on it, but it's just like such a random title they picked out, which is pretty cool. And the game does look really fun. I'll probably check it out when it comes out. But as I mentioned, this was originally developed by Any Channel. It was the studio's first game, and in 1998 they released a game called Vigilance for the PC. And after that, the studio kind of disappeared. They don't really have any credits to their games, and some of the key people, I looked them up on Moby Games, they really didn't do anything much after that 98 period. So I'd be interested to see like how the rights came about for Night Dive Studios getting this. That'd be interesting to learn about. And but yeah, it's coming out consoles and PC. Definitely an interesting Doom clone. I think at the time it got pretty decent reviews that I was checking out. So it's definitely going to be for those hardcore fans that want to play a Doom clone where you're fighting aliens with cooking pans and knives and bazookas and rocket launchers and all this crazy stuff. So yeah, PO'd coming out at some point. So from Night Dive Studios. And moving on to some PlayStation news. Sony President Hiroki Totoki is now officially the interim CEO of PlayStation. So he took over head of PlayStation this week after Jim Ryan, the former top guy for PlayStation, just retired after 30 years with the company. And this announcement was, this kind of transition was previously announced in September 2023 that Totoki would be taking over until they find a more permanent replacement. And he's kind of been in the news past couple of months because he was talking about that, which we mentioned on the show before too. He's talked about how some of the PlayStation studios, they're really creative and great game creators, but they don't really understand the business side of things. And then shortly after those quotes came out, PlayStation cut like a, forgot what it was, close to 1,000 people or something, and closed the studio down and things like that. And he's talked about how the PlayStation brand needs to increase their margins for game releases, so releasing stuff simultaneously on Steam, PC platforms like they did with Helldivers 2. So you'll probably be seeing more of that. I don't know how long this guy is going to be president or top guy at PlayStation, but it does sound like they're looking for somebody more permanent. But as of now, he is leading the ship of the PlayStation 5, and see what he does. I mean, they've definitely had some issues with Jim Ryan stuff. You can kind of see the live service games have been a big issue. They've spent all this money to acquire Bungie and get all these live service games up and running, and they don't really have much to show for it yet. I think Helldivers 2 they just lucked into. Like, I don't think they were anticipating that game to be such a hit as it came, selling millions of copies and things like that. So they have PlayStation VR 2, which is pretty much dead at this point. I mean, they've slowed down production of that. They're transitioning it to play games on be compatible with PC, and they don't have any exclusives lined up for PlayStation VR. And he had previously said to Toki that there wouldn't be any new games and established franchises until the next fiscal year, which is April 2025. So it's got a year gap here of some, with PlayStation. So PS5 is still a dominant console, but you can kind of see there's some issues there with their first party stuff. So let's see what he's able to do going forward. And best wishes to him and his run there. But it's got a great name, right? Hiroki Totoki. Just really comes off the tongue. But he is the current CEO of PlayStation, who is the Sony president anyway, so he's kind of pulling double duty there. So we'll see what happens in the next several months under his leadership, because he just took officially over this week. So, but moving on to Helldivers 2, which I just mentioned as a example of a surprise hit for Sony, who published that game. Helldivers 2 just put out an update that raised its level cap and added some new features, and also announced a new premium war bond is coming out next week. So through this patch that's already been updated, they've raised the level cap from 50 to 150, so that's a pretty big gap jump there. They've also added quality of life stuff and improvements, and a new feature they added is environmental storms like blizzards and sandstorms will be encountered by players depending on what planet they're on, which is really cool. I always like those effects in Helldivers 2, like some of the planets I play on, like the Earth will shake or the planet will shake, I'm sorry, and it just kind of like changes the dynamic of the moment you're in, so those are really cool. Blizzard sounds interesting. I wonder what planet that would be on, because I don't think I've played on any snowy planets yet. So that will be some good stuff. And the new Premium War Bond. This is the paid battle pass that unlocks content for the game. It costs about $10 if you pay for it, but you can also buy it by playing the game and unlocking super credits and other stuff, premium currency that you can unlock just by playing the game, which is probably one of the better battle passes out there compared to other more predatory ones where you got to play a game every single day of the week and meet all these challenges, and then they remove the content after 30 days or something. So the way they do their war bonds is really great. The content's always going to be there. And it's also purchasable just by playing the game naturally. So that's really cool. But this new war bond on April 11th is called Democratic Detonation. And I guess the theme of it is causing explosions and heavy damage. The last one they just released, which we talked about on the show before, was more like a laser weapon focus. So this one is kind of has this overall theme of just like big fiery stuff. So it was a new weapon like an exploding crossbow, which sounds pretty awesome, and other new weapons like grenades and armor that you can unlock by the Warbound just by playing through the game and unlocking them that way. So that exploding crossbow sounds really cool. I do want to check that out. And like I said, Hell Divers 2 really does the battle pass stuff the right way. So it's like, if you're really interested in this game, community is still going strong. They just raised the level caps a significant amount, so I think people are going to be sticking with the game even more. Keep playing and leveling up. So it's a great time to still jump in, and it's really cool that they're supporting the game in this way and continually adding new content. So I will be checking that out. Maybe this weekend I'll play. I'm nowhere near level 50. I'm like level 10 still. So, but these people, the game that just play so many games, they're like they were probably like itching for this level cap to be raised. So the game has been out since February 8th, I believe. So it's almost 2 months. So I can see how there's people at that level. I don't think I've played with anybody that high. I think the highest level I played with was somebody probably like high 20s. But I think you do need to level up to beat some of those harder missions on the higher difficulties. That would probably help. And then also having some of these better weapons in the war bonds probably helps too. So look forward to that war bond next week. And like I said, the update is already available. So they've already raised the level cap. If you play the game now, you'll be able to get up to level 150. And some update on a game that's been in limbo for quite some time is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake. It's still happening. Hasn't been canceled, hasn't gone away. It's still in development. And this is according to Saber Interactive CEO Matthew Karch, who spoke to IGN on April 2nd for an interview. He says, Karch confirmed that the company took KOTOR with it during its split from Embracer Group. So the side note there, Embracer did sell Saber Interactive and a lot of its subsidiaries to the one of the co-founders. I think it's the same guy. It might be the same guy, but definitely one of the co-founders. It was a private group that he founded. So Saber Interactive is independent, away from Embracer Group, and they, like he's saying in here, company took KOTOR with it during its split from Embracer Group, and that the game is still in active development. Here's a quote. It's clear and it's obvious that we're working on this. Karch said, it's been in the press numerous times. What I will say is that the game is alive and well, and we're dedicated to making sure we exceed consumer expectations. So alive and well, that's it's doing well. It's on a life support. He didn't say, yeah, we're struggling. We're barely hanging by a thread. It's alive and well. So this game was originally announced in 2021, but it's had a lot of issues, a lot of rumors of cancellations, and just a whole bunch of stuff. But I think it was kind of in limbo too because of the situation with Embracer. But Saber Interactive did take the KOTOR remake with it, so that's probably going to be one of its biggest games that it eventually can put out. But this game's been in development for several years. So it was announced in 2021, but I think it was in development way before that. And as the title suggests, this is a remake of the KOTOR game that came out in, what was it, 2002 or something on the Xbox and late PC. So one of the best games of all time, and people are like really hyped for this, but it's never a good thing where you have to like reassure people like the game is still in active development and all this stuff. So hopefully they can right that ship and get this game out eventually, because I do want to play it. Because I do remember playing KOTOR, and that was a awesome game. So hopefully there's just only positive news going forward from this game, because he did confirm that it's alive and well. So see what happens. And in some other game announcement news from another franchise, just like we talked with, I just talked recently earlier in the show about Splinter Cell, which is a franchise that's been kind of gone for a long time. Gears of War 6 news potentially coming this summer. Now, Gears of War hasn't been gone that long, but it just feels like it's been gone for an eternity, and it's been real quiet, and there's been no news about a new game, which used to be the Xbox brand's biggest franchise, Gears of War, especially during the Xbox 360 era. So Gears of War 6 news information potentially coming this summer, and this is coming from a couple different sources. So this was first discussed on episode 180 of the Kind of Funny XCast show, and Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb was on the show with the host on Kind of Funny, which is his name is Paris Lilly, and they were talking about it's an Xbox focused podcast. They were talking about the just the state of the Xbox, and Paris said, there's a quote here, when they showed the Marvel 1943 trailer in Unreal Engine 5 during GDC, I jokingly tweeted, quote, imagine what Gears 6 would look like in Unreal 5, quote, Lily said, because it looks so good. Yeah, Unreal Engine 5 looks incredibly amazing. If you haven't seen the trailer for Marvel 1943, go look that up because it looks like so lifelike. And I actually thought the same thing too. I was like, man, if Gears of War did this, that would look pretty awesome. But so he goes on to say, and then somebody from the Coalition, just a side note there, that's the current development team of the Gears franchise. And then somebody from the Coalition made a cryptic little subtweet under me about that, which perked my ears on that. So my conspiracy theory is that you do tease it this year, and then it's probably a launch game for next gen. That seems to make sense to me. And then Jeff Grubb said, quote, I will say I've heard some stuff that might be happening. Oh, I've heard some stuff might be happening with Gear 6 this summer, so I think that tease sounds about right to me, Paris. That seems like what we can expect. And then earlier today, Tom Warren of The Verge kind of confirmed this Gears of War 6 news, also confirming that Xbox will do a showcase presentation in June where this Gears 6, or whatever they're going to call it, is probably going to be revealed. So that's really interesting. It's about time they brought this back. The last game in the series was Gears 5 in September 2019 for the Xbox One, which launched on Game Pass, and I don't think that game did the franchise any favors. They had so they were trying to do this thing where it was a Game Pass Day 1 game, huge release, because at the time Game Pass was still newer, and it was a big game for the subscription service. So they did this. Gears of War has also always been known for its multiplayer, but Gears 5, they were basically doing seasonal content, so not all the multiplayer characters were available, and features were missing and stuff like that. So when they did something like that, they basically killed the multiplayer game community like within the first month. Like the player count, because I remember playing it at the time, and the player count just drastically dropped. And there were just so many issues with the multiplayer. People were just like furious with the Coalition, and it just wasn't done right. And I was like, oh man, they gotta just let this stay dormant for a while and bring it back or do something. The campaign was really good. Gears 4 was good too. But that's kind of the key word, is good. I think Gears 1 through 3 were pretty incredible games. Generation defining games for the Xbox 360. I don't think you could do that game now the same way. I think that's why those games don't have much of an impact, Gears 4 and 5. Just in addition to like the studio change and development team changing and some other choices with, like I said, in Gears 5, the multiplayer design that was obviously designed to get money out of people instead of, before, unlike Helldivers 2, which I just talked about. Totally opposite games, right? Gears 5 was obviously designed to get you to pay and keep forcing you to play the game if you want to play as a main character. Oh, you got to wait till next season, then we'll drop the character, and then, oh, well, you missed out on that character, we're not bringing him back, or whatever the issue was, right? Helldivers 2 is just so different from that, right? They're just doing it the right way. But from a story perspective, Gears 4 and 5 were just good. Weren't blow away. I thought Gears 1 and 2 really the whole trilogy was just fantastic, especially if you played a co-op at the time. I think Gears 2 might be the best one of the three from my memory from when I played them when it came out. But all three games were awesome. But it's been so long, and it's if you bring that same type of game, I don't think it would have that same impact. And so many games copied it. It really was a product of its time period. But you could probably still do something within it. So I'm interested to see what they have for Gears 6 or Gears of War 6 or whatever they call it, or whatever they decide it's what's going to be. But I don't think they can follow the same path as Gears 5. Hopefully from the multiplayer side, they learn their lesson and don't ruin the game like they did with Gears 5, because that would be brutal. I think the two guys there, Paris and Jeff Grubb, were talking maybe this game is going to be next generation, the next Xbox, maybe a launch title. They were just thinking their own opinion on that, which I guess makes sense. But like I said, the last game was Gears 5 in 2019. They did do an update for the I guess the Xbox Series X version. But as far as like a whole new game, I don't think the Coalition and what they've been up to. So it's a long time. And if they do release that or release the news this summer, that'll probably be the big showcase game for Xbox this summer. And I'm interested to see what they can do, because I always like Gears of War, and I did like Gears 4 and 5, but I know a lot of people hated it or just kind of dismissed those games because they were just kind of there. And the campaigns weren't as memorable as, Gears 1 through 3, but maybe Gears 6, they do a reboot. I don't remember the Gears 5 ending per se. I think it was supposed to be a trilogy. Could be wrong on that, because I beat that game when it came out, so my memory is a little bit fuzzy, but I think they did introduce a new playable character. I think her name was like Kat or Kate or something like that. So I think it was going along with her story in the next Gears game. So, or they just do a whole new thing. I don't know what they're going to do because it's been so long. But I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be a pretty awesome game, especially like if they use Unreal Engine 5. That'll look absolutely incredible. And that'll probably add a lot to the gameplay experience too. So, interesting developments with Gears of War news. Feels like we haven't heard or seen anything from that franchise in a long time. Especially because it came out right before the COVID pandemic hit in early 2020. So that kind of added about 5 years for every year. So it really feels like a lifetime since the last Gears of War game came out, or we heard anything about Gears of War. So we'll see what happens this summer. And in some interesting video game character news, Lara Croft has been voted the most iconic video game character of all time. So I don't think I would think of Lara Croft as the most iconic, like numero uno, but this is according to BAFTA, which is the British Academy Film Awards poll results, where they ranked 20 characters based on poll results of over 4,000 players that voted. So Lara Croft from the Tomb Raider franchise took number 1, and number 2 was Mario, which you would have thought was number 1, but Mario can't compete with Lara Croft there. And then number 3 was Agent 47 from the Hitman series. Sonic the Hedgehog was number 4. And Sackboy from Little Big Planet was rounding out the top 5 there. So interesting choices that people voted on, especially like Lara Croft. I think definitely more in the 90s she was like super iconic, but then really hasn't been at that height since then. I know they did like some of the new Tomb Raider games. They did a trilogy recently on PS3/PS4 and Xbox and stuff like that. So but it wasn't at the height of those games. But she's still kind of, I mean, it's voted by these players the most iconic game character. I was surprised by Agent 47 because I don't view Hitman in that regard. It's especially over characters like Sonic and Mario. Or I'm sorry, unlike over Sonic. Pac-Man was ranked number 6. Link, Legend of Zelda, number 7. Master Chief from Halo, number 8. Kratos from God of War, 9. Shadowheart from Baldur's Gate 3 was 10. So that's a recent edition of all-time list. Arthur Morgan was from Red Dead Redemption 2 was number 11. Pikachu number 12 from Pokemon. Steve from Minecraft number 13. Number 14, Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid. I thought he would have been higher. I would have replaced Agent 47 with Snake. That seems like a better fit. Crash Bandicoot from Crash Bandicoot, number 15. Cloud Strife, our favorite Cloud, Final Fantasy VII, number 16. Number 17, Astreon, Baldur's Gate 3, another Baldur's Gate 3 character. That's interesting. 18, Kazuma Kiryu, Yakuza. 19, Ellie Williams from The Last of Us. And rounding out the 20th position is Nathan Drake from Uncharted. So, again, these were voted on by players. Just interesting that Lara Croft took the top spot. I wonder what the age demographic of these voters were, because that seems more of like a older demographic, but then like you got like Agent 47 on there. I'm like, how is he like number 3? I guess he's iconic, right? But over Mario, I think Sackboy is 5. That's kind of weird. Interesting list. Lara Croft. I always got love for Lara Croft. That was really a massive franchise in the 90s, like so huge. And then they did those movies with Angelina Jolie in the early 2000s. I don't think she's at the same height, that character, as, you know, back then, obviously, but still holding out a place in people's hearts because she got number 1 spot from this BAFTA poll. So pretty interesting. And some Nintendo news here. Online features for the Wii U and 3DS consoles will be shutting down this upcoming Monday, April 8th. So that is the end of an era for 2 Nintendo consoles of a decade ago. So this was planned for a while. Nintendo announced this in October 2023 that they would be shutting down the online features like multiplayer, social connection, stuff like that. Nintendo closed down the Wii U and 3DS eShops on March 27th, 2023. So currently you can still download any purchases that you would have made to those consoles, but you cannot buy new stuff. So yeah, the Wii U launched in November 2012. And the 3DS launched in February 2011 in Japan and March 2011 rest of the world. So that's a long time ago. I remember when those came out. 3DS. I think the 3DS was way better than the Wii U. The Wii U was basically just a failure, which they quickly abandoned for the Nintendo Switch a few years later. And the Switch is just like their renaissance. Like they're just on top of the world. But there's some good games you can't play online anymore, like Mario Kart 7. I used to play that a lot on the 3DS. And then the original Splatoon for the Wii U, you won't be able to play the online multiplayer anymore. So all online features for those games on every game on those consoles is ending on Monday. So if you're listening to this show, you got about 2 days to get in your last moments with the 3DS and the Wii U, if you still want to hook up your Wii U for some reason, as most of those games got ported to the Switch anyway. But I'm sure there's some exclusive stuff on there that, you know, is going to be lost forever. And the 3DS had a lot of great games as well. I know like Animal Crossing was one that was online, Smash Brothers. But I'm surprised they supported the Wii U this long, because that it seems like they just wanted that thing dead like immediately when it came out, because it was just like it just bombed so hard. So 2012 to 2024, that's 12 years. I mean, realistically, this thing should go on forever. Like, you're losing features to games and stuff like that, and it sucks. But 3DS was 13 years ago, so that's a long time. So again, you got a couple of days, because April 8th, it's going bye-bye. So definitely the end of an era, for sure, because the stores are already closed, and now the online features are going to be gone forever. So but yeah, that's the Nintendo news right there. And a couple of games coming to PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium subscriptions day one. So it was announced this week that Tales of Kenzera, which is a upcoming Metroidvania type game, is releasing on April 23rd and will be available to PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium subscribers day one. This game is a Metroidvania inspired by African culture, tribes, mythology, and environments. And the storyline of the game is about grief and dealing with loss, which is based on the creator's loss and death of his father. So it's a very personal story. And the developer is Surgeon Studios, and it's being published by Electronic Arts under its EA Origins label, and it's the studio's first game. So this game has been different events showcase. Looks really awesome. The art style is great. It's going to be a regular price of $19.99 for PS5, Xbox Series, Nintendo Switch, and PC. But if you have those PlayStation Plus tiers, it won't be on the basic PlayStation Plus. It's going to be on the more expensive tiers, Extra and Premium. You can download that day one, which I will be doing. I have PlayStation Plus Extra, so I'm going to check this game out. It looks really good. And the second game is Dave the Diver, which is also launching day one on PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. And this game's coming out a week prior on April 16th for the PS4 and PS5. And this is a game where you are managing a sushi bar by gathering resources underwater, and it's got some like adventure gameplay elements to it too when you're doing that. So management game, adventure game kind of rolled into one. This game originally launched for the PC and Mac last summer and for the Switch last fall, and was in Steam Early Access since October 2022. And as of this January, it's sold over 3 million copies. So I know there was a little bit of like a controversy or rift with the game, because for the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley's show last December, it was nominated for Indie Game of the Year, when it's not really an indie game, because it's I think the company is called Nexon or something, or something like that. It's a South Korean game publisher, so they're not really like an indie, but it's a very popular game coming out to PlayStation finally this April 16th. So if you have those two tiers of PlayStation, either one or the other, then you can download the game and play it as part of that day one. And also content for the game where with Godzilla, we talked about Godzilla earlier in the show. Godzilla is going to be popping up in Dave the Diver in May, so that's pretty cool add-on content there. I'll probably check this out. I haven't really played this game or looked too much into it, but since I already have the PlayStation Plus Extra, I'm going to download it and check it out because it seems to be really fun. And finally here, we have some new Xbox Game Pass titles announced, and in the next couple of weeks, they got some really good stuff coming out. So the first game here, Super Hot Mind Control Delete for Cloud, Console, and PC came out on April 2nd, so that's out already. Lego 2K Drive Cloud and Console is out on April 3rd, and that's out already. Lil Gator Game, like Lil, like a little rapper. Lil Gator Game, Cloud, Console, and PC, April 4th. That's out already. And Little Gator Game is a 3D platformer where you play as an alligator. It's got really like a nice art style to it. originally released in December 2022 on Switch and PC, and then a year later for consoles. So now it's coming out on Game Pass. Already out, actually. The next game is EA Sports PGA Tour, Cloud PC, and part of EA Play. That's April 4th, so that's out already. Kona, Kona, Kona with a K, for cloud and console, April 9th. That's a returning game to Game Pass, which is an adventure, detective, narrative game that first released in 2017. Also, super hot game that I mentioned at the top of this story is also a returning game to Game Pass. And then we have Botany Manor, which is coming to Cloud PC and Xbox Series on April 9th. This is available day one on Game Pass, so this is a day one title. This is an indie game where it's a first-person puzzle game set in a Victorian English manor in 1890. And it's also on all consoles and PC, so it's also going to be releasing on Switch and PlayStation. And it's coming from Balloon Studios. It's a small indie company based in the UK, I think, and founded by Laure Demey and published by Whitethorn Games. So Whitethorn Games does a lot of indie stuff like this. If you look at this style of the game, they do a lot of similar stuff. So that's coming out day one, April 9th. And then we have Shadow of the Tomb Raider Definite Edition, Cloud, consoles, and PC on April 11th. And this is the third game in the Survivors trilogy, which released in 2018. And if you have Steam, or actually too on Xbox, it's Tomb Raider Definite Edition with all three games. So the first Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider is currently on sale. I don't think it's on sale for PlayStation, but I just nabbed this deal on Steam for like $13. I got all three games. I think on Xbox it's like $17. So really great deal. But Shadow of the Tomb Raider is coming to Game Pass on April 11th. And the last game here, one of my most anticipated games of the year, and something I've talked about on this show a few times, is Harold Halibut, which is coming to Cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S, April 16th, day one on Game Pass. And this is the game where it's like an adventure, story-focused game where all the characters and basically everything in the game, from the environments to the items, everything was handcrafted by the studio. So it's taken them like 10 years to make this game. Like no exaggeration, it's been over a decade. But you are basically on a ship that escaped Earth during the Cold War and crash landed on an alien planet underwater. And a couple hundred years later, you're playing as this guy named Harold Halibut, and who's like a kind of apprentice of the main scientist of the ship. And the main scientist is trying to figure out a way to get the ship off the planet, off the underwater surface, so they can get off and go to maybe to a new planet. And it kind of gives you this story of the world on this ship and everything. And there's a demo available on Steam, but this is going to be day one on Game Pass. Looks tremendous. Can't wait to play it. Definitely recommend everybody check this out if you have Game Pass. So, but yeah, that's the list of titles they've released. Some good stuff here. I already downloaded Lego 2K Drive, which, on a side note on that, it feels like that game just came out, because it did, like last year. So maybe it didn't do that great. But Lego 2K Drive, I downloaded that, and I downloaded Little Gator Game, because that looks really cool and looks like a fun platformer. So I have those two loaded up, and I'm going to be checking out Harold Halibut on April 16th, like immediately, because I can't wait to play that game. But yeah, that's going to be it for the show. That's all the news we have for this episode. I just want to remind everybody that you can subscribe to the show on the podcast platforms that you are on. You can also subscribe to our channel on YouTube at Quarter Disorder Podcast. And you can follow us on social media by going to quarterdisorderpodcast.com. At the top of the page is a podcast section with our social media links to all platforms: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Threads, basically everywhere. So you can follow us on there and get notified of new episodes that way. And if you have any feedback for this episode or comments you want to leave, we will have show notes for this post that will be available on quarterdisorderpodcast.com. And in the show notes, you can leave a comment in that show note thread or email us your comments or questions to feedback@quarterdisorderpodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you. Any feedback is really appreciated as it helps us make the show better, and we just want to engage with the listeners and hear what you guys are thinking about the show. And I think that's about it. That's going to wrap it up. And one last thing. If you are enjoying the show, please leave us a review on iTunes or give us a rating on Spotify or give us a thumbs up on YouTube, because that helps the show get out there and helps us build up an audience. And we appreciate any feedback that you listeners out there can leave for us. So having said that, that's going to be it for the show, and I hope you all have a great weekend.